Hello, hi everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to IBM Developer Series. We have the Security Tuesdays, Data Science and AI Wednesdays, Cloud Native and Red Hat OpenShift Thursdays, and today we'll be talking about open source. My name is Fawaz Siddiqui, and I'm a developer advocate at IBM. With me, I have Mridul Bandari and Chaitanya Mittal. Chaitanya, Mridul, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure, Fawaz. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Mittal Pandari, and I'm a developer advocate from IBM Dubai.
Hello everyone, I'm Chaitanya. I'm currently a student at Amity University, Dubai, and an open source developer with the Wikimedia Foundation.
All right, so let's get started with today's topic. Can we just have focus on the presentation? Thank you. And before we even get started, the first things first, will be just to show you around the event platform, which we have. On your top right, you'll see the name of the workshop, and on your top left, you'll see the name of the workshop. On your top right, you'll see IBM Developer. You can follow us to get notified about further workshops. We have some call to action button at the workshop resources, so you can always click here to go to any resource which we're mentioning here, and my colleagues will be also putting them in the chat. In case you have any questions, you can always ask a question right here, or you can even chat with everyone who is available there on the platform and actually discuss about what we're talking about. And there are also some poll questions right there, so it'd be really helpful if you can answer those poll questions so that we know what is your background, what is your capability, and what we should cover and what we should emphasize on. So first, let's get started with today's content. So what is open source basically? It's an open development model, okay, where people collaborate and it's all completely decentralized. And the source code is actually publicly accessible, and overall it's protected with the license. To actually sum up all of these things, many people collaborate on a workshop, or I wouldn't say a workshop, actually a project, okay? And that project, the source code is publicly available. And with this collaborative method, people can actually sum up their skills. They can actually talk about their development skills as well, and they can implement those skills and gain public eminence onto a particular project of their interest. And with this is the next thing in the technology world, open source technology, and it's been growing at a very fast pace over the past year, and especially 2021, it's considered to be the year of open source. So basically, where did it all start? It didn't really start in 2021. It started way back. It started in 1969, and here we will refer to Arpanet. So Arpanet was the Advanced Research Projects Agency Network, and it was between some universities such as UCLA, UCB, SRI, based in Utah. And this network started expanding in 1982, including Harvard, Xerox. Xerox was something very big during that time, the Pentagon as well. And you know what was the best part about Arpanet? It actually promoted peer review and open feedback. And with the help of those two things, with the help of peer reviews and other researchers coming into Arpanet and researching into computer networks, what was the outcome? It was the internet. And that's why we all are here, and that's why we can actually collaborate with each other easily in today's world. So what are the benefits of open source? First of all, it's cheap, it's flexible, and it has more longevity. So what do I mean by cheap, flexible, and longevity? So cheaper is because many people are going to collaborate with you, and they're doing it for the greater good, or not only that, for their eminence. So basically, you'll get many people onboarded onto your project. Then it's more flexible. If people can add new features, remove features which are old and not or are not compatible with older softwares or older operating systems. And more longevity. So let's say someone has decided to retract an open source project, but there will be someone else and another team who would need this, and they will be continuing to support that project and actually build up on what was the base source code of it. And And it actually reaches way beyond software production, okay? And something very important about open source development is that there's more security than proprietary software, because proprietary software, people are actually just looking at a particular team is looking at the software. But here you have more eyes, you have more collaborators, and that would lead to more security of the software as well. In case someone is a software security expert in maybe, let's say, API transactions, they'll be able to mitigate all the risks which are within a particular software or a program or a project. And projects are always up to date according to industry standards. So as developers, we all focus on different industry standards, and as a solution is concerned, we tend to make the solution capable of an industry standard. So us as developers, we tend to go ahead and make sure that the project is optimized for various industries. And last but not the least, it allows people to learn from others. Okay, something it's very, very important actually, that it's very essential to learn. As a developer, you're always learning, and there's always new technologies working at a very fast pace. So you need to learn, and you need to implement those skills somewhere. And open source project would be a really good way to get started. So what are the values of open source? So, sorry, what are the values of open source? First of all, it's peer review. Okay, with the help of peer review, others review your code, and they give you feedback, you learn from them. And in case if something is of your skill set, you actually go ahead and you give them your review as well. So that's something to start with. Then there's transparency. Nothing is hidden in the code. Everything's public. Everything's open. It's all protected by a license, but it's public. And basically, what happens here is that nobody can actually create some vulnerability within the code unless it's something which can be mitigated, or there's nothing hidden. The code is very much reliable because many people are contributing. It's decentralized. It's flexible. Many people are maintaining it, so 100% there's reliability. And also the factor of flexibility, because flexibility is essential. And this way, by flexibility, we mean adding new features is very much easy when it comes to open source projects. It's 100% low cost. Like I mentioned, many people working on the project, it automatically builds up. And there's no vendor lock-in. So when let's say proprietary softwares are you have a vendor lock-in, basically you're just stuck to one vendor. But with the help of open source, you don't have that. You can build once, you can get the data from one place, and you can move it to another open source project by just some cleaning and playing around with the data. And the last one is open collaboration. Everyone can collaborate on an open source project. It's very essential to collaborate. And basically, that's the main key value of open source, and that's what the name starts for, open collaboration. So some of the open source communities which we're gonna highlight today, and some of them are very much my favorite, and I'm always active on them. The first one would be Homebrew. It's a package manager, and usually people with Mac OS usually use Homebrew to actually install packages. Then there's the Linux Foundation. We have Ubuntu and other operating systems such as Linux Mint as well, and they're part of Linux Foundation. Then there's Free Code Camp, where you can actually learn coding online, and it's completely open source, where people actually create modules for the website for Free Code Camp and actually allow other people to learn. Then there's Cocoa Pod. There's OpenGenesis Foundation, Apache Software Foundation. It's one of the biggest foundations in the at this point. And another, the largest foundation is GitHub. GitHub has a lot of projects. It never ends basically, and GitHub is a really good place to start to actually contribute to open source. Then there's Cloud Native Computing Foundation, which basically focuses on things like Kubernetes, Red Hat OpenShift, could be Docker, and all of the cloud native technologies. And one of the most famous, Hyperledger Foundation. They were very much responsible in the blockchain traction, and they still are looking into the blockchain market. So these are some communities which are very much active in today's age, and we really look forward to them to releasing new technology from time to time. So always, if you're starting on open source, it's always good to have an eye on the communities which you see, and it's better to follow what they're releasing and how you can contribute. So now I'm going to forward it to Mridul about well-known open source projects.
Thank you, Fawaz. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you're all safe and doing well. So, IBM has been unmatched in its breadth of open source involvement. So, with that is with either with the acquisition of Red Hat in 2019 or with the call for code challenges. They have been involved in open source since one of the companies which have been involved for the longest period of times. So the open source contribution varies from quantum and blockchain to containers, AI, and operating systems. And they are always leading the world's most influential projects, and they're trying to create new projects and push new technology forward for tomorrow. And some of the projects are like Hyperledger, Node.js, Qiskit, Kubernetes, Knative, Kubeflow, Node-RED, Microprofile, or TensorFlow. So these are some of the projects which are shown on the screen today, and I'll go through them, and I'll show you what these projects do exactly. So first, we have the equal access and toolkit checker. So using this toolkit, you can increase the accessibility of your product, regardless of your role or expertise, and this helps you to identify project needs and inject accessibility into sprints and releases. And the aim is to design an inclusive user experience with accessible content and effective visual design. Next, we have the Qiskit, which is an open source quantum development. Now, Qiskit is an open source SDK for working with quantum computers, and it involves it works at the level of pulses, circuits, and application modules. And it helps you accelerate the development of quantum applications by providing complete set of tools needed for interacting with quantum system and simulators. So you can access circuits, hardware access, quantum algorithms, or noise mitigation. This all can be done using Qiskit. Next, we have the Model Asset Exchange. Now, Model Asset Exchange has free deployable and trainable codes. So developers can find and use free and open source deep learning modules. So we have the image caption generator, we have the object detection, we have the optical character recognition model. Then we have image resolution enhancer, text sentiment classifier, or toxic comment classifier. So these are just some of the models which Model Asset Exchange has, and this is available to developers for free, and they can easily go access these models on developer.ibm.com/exchanges/models, and these links will be shared with you in the chat. So all of these models are available on Model Asset Exchange, and these are free to use. Next, we have Loopback. Now, what does Loopback do? So it's an highly extensible Node.js and TypeScript framework. It is used for building APIs and frameworks. So it tries to deliver great extensibility and flexibility in writing in for TypeScript, and you can create powerful APIs within just by defining REST APIs and handling API request and responses. And it contains a programming module with dependency injection and new concepts such as components, mixins, repositories, which makes it the most extensible version yet. And it also has GraphQL support. So if you're looking for something for Node.js and TypeScript framework, you can always go for Loopback because of its various supports it provides. Then we have the AI Fairness 360. So what this does is it provides an extensible open source toolkit that can help you examine, report, and mitigate discrimination and bias in machine learning algorithms. And it does it throughout the AI application lifecycle. It's not just at one point of the ML cycle, but during the entire life cycle. And you can go ahead and you can try out the demo and how to use it. You can also if you're interested, you can read a paper on it. There are many papers available, or there are some tutorials, or you can notebooks which you can go and try it out. Next, we have the blockchain extension for VS Code. Now, the blockchain platform helps developers create, test, and debug smart contracts, connect to Hyperledger Fabric environments, and build applications that transact on your blockchain network. So if you're looking for something related to blockchain where you want to build smart contracts, you can always try out the blockchain IBM blockchain platform, and it is available freely on the VS Code as an extension. So you don't need to go and download something else. VS Code is the most commonly used IDE right now, and you can just go ahead to the extensions and you can download this extension, which is the IBM blockchain platform extension. Then we have the data asset exchange. So this will, you can with data scientists and data analysts who are people who are learning in this field, always looking out for new data sets to try out the models, to try out the dashboards, to learn more. So with data asset exchange, you can go ahead and explore useful and relevant data sets for enterprise data science. So there are a lot of data sets available, like the weather data or banking data, fashion NIST data. Then we have TensorFlow speech commands and contracts proposition for banks, finance proposition for banks, oil reservoir simulations, and various other data sets which you can go ahead and try it out on the data asset exchange, IBM data asset exchange site, and you can retrieve these data sets. Next, we have the Carbon design system. So Carbon is IBM's open source design system for products and digital experiences. And the system consists of working code, design tools, and resources with human interface guidelines and a vibrant community of contributors. So if you're a front-end developer, you're working with web applications or websites, you can go ahead and you can check out Carbon design systems. Some of IBM's own products are built using this Carbon design system. So this is gives you a highly professional look for your websites and for your applications, and the components are freely available. So you can, if you're looking for front-end development, you can go ahead, you can check out Carbon design system and integrate it in your projects. Next, we have CLI. So this is a design system for this is something that augments life on command line. So developers are very reliant on terminal or command prompt for Windows, and with CLI you can have a lot of helpful commands which can make your life easy while developing AI projects. So it has various plugins called skills. You can go ahead, you can try those out. You can you can use that, and it can reduce the number of commands you're putting in your terminal, or provide you with shorter commands which can decrease the development time, or production time for your code, deployment and production time for your code. So you can go ahead, you can install Clay for your terminal. Then we have the Apache OpenWhisk. So this is an open source distributed serverless platform, and it executes functions in events in any scale. So this will help you manage your infrastructure, servers, and you can also scale it using Docker containers. So you can focus on building amazing and efficient applications. It supports a programming module in which developers write functional logic, and it is supported in any programming language. And you can run it. It runs in response to associated events like via triggers, or from external sources, or from HTTP requests. So that is about Apache OpenWhisk. So next we have the Node-RED. So this is a low-code programming event-driven application. So Node-RED is a programming tool for wiring together hardware devices. So it's mainly used for IoT projects, but you can also use it for various other applications. So this has APIs, and it has online services which you can integrate and use in an interesting way. And it provides a browser-based editor, so that makes it easy to wire together flows, and you can use wide range of nodes in the palette. And this can be deployed to your runtime in a single click. And next we have MicroProfile. So what is MicroProfile? So MicroProfile aims at optimizing enterprise Java for microservice architecture. So most Java environments and frameworks are already microservices framework and environments, they already exist in Java ecosystem. So to make this more optimized and efficient, we have the MicroProfile. So this can help you create new features, and it addresses capabilities for microservice architectures, and it leverages both Jakarta EE and Java EE and non-Jakarta EE technologies. So you can go ahead and you can get support for various versions of what you require for Java microservices architecture. And the aim of the project is to iterate and innovate in short cycles. And it's try to, bring in new common APIs and functionality, which you can use at ease in your microservice architecture. Then we have the open blockchain. So open blockchain or the Hyperledger fabric, it's intended as a foundation for developing applications or solutions with a modular architecture. So this allows components such as consist and micro membership services to be plug and play. And it has a modular and versatile design. So it satisfies a broad range of industry use cases, and it offers a unique way to enable performance at scaling and preserving privacy along with that. Then we have Prometeo. So as I mentioned about call for code, which is a challenge by IBM, where we have a lot of projects coming up, which we try to solve environmental problems or problems which are faced by the world. So Prometeo is an project which was built by developers who are participating in the IBM Call for Code challenge. So this was product, it helps you protect us and the firefighters. So they developed this is a prototype which sensor which sends environmental telemetry like temperature, humidity, and smoke concentration. And this data is processed by ML algorithm, machine learning algorithm, and is able to predict the firefighter health and indicating if they're okay or to be in danger or not. So it gives you a real-time status, and it eventually aggregates the data to make suggestions that can improve the health outcomes in the long run. So this was something which was developed from developers who were participating in Call for Code challenge, not within IBM. And last we have Elira. So this is an AI toolkit. This is just an a set of AI-centric extensions for your Jupyter Lab notebooks. So if you're looking for new extensions or new modules for your Jupyter notebook, you can try out Elira. It has various AI features which you can easily access through using the toolkit. Hello, Fawaz? Yeah, thank you. So open source skills have been being considered by the industry as greater than the proprietary skills or softwares. And why is that the case? So if you're an open source contributor, it gives you a lot of social eminence. So a lot of places where if you're a developer, you might have seen, recruiters are asking for your GitHub profile or show your projects, and you usually, share that link. So and you share your comments, or you can show your contributions. So you can always get this eminence if you're contributing to open source projects, and this will help recruiters notice your profile also. And you can also share the work you have done, and other people around the globe can also see, what is your expertise and your skill set and what are the projects you're working on. Next, open source was said to be rated equal or better than proprietary software. And Fawaz already mentioned some of the reasons for that, and I'll go through it. So the reason for this is the initial cost is zero or negligible. So you can just start by retrieving the code from any verified source, and a lot of developers are working on the projects, and they can save up on costs and time by utilizing open source projects. And as these projects are used by many developers, they're constantly being worked on by other contributors. So this also results in quick responses to bugs. So this makes open source projects highly reliable. And there's a continuous evaluation to this, these projects. So there's open accessibility, which leads to, longevity of open source projects. Whereas the risk of proprietary software companies shutting down is a common fear for many developers, and this would lead to eventual loss of support and updates for that project. So open source, these are some of the reasons why open source is considered equal or better than proprietary by many developers. Now, open source projects impress potential employers. So when you're applying for a role and you're sharing a GitHub profile, they can always see the contributions and the work you're doing and the projects you're working on. So if you're contributing to open source projects, they can always see what is your level of expertise, and what all changes you have done and what all work you have done, and how your work has been used, and how useful it is to the entire community, not just to yourself, but to the community. So this impresses a lot of potential employers. So if you're contributing, you have an upper hand than the applicants who have not been contributing to open source. And a lot of these employers also reach out to people who are constantly contributing to open source projects. So recently Microsoft hired the Von Rossum, who was the founder who developed Python, and he started Python as an open source project, and which eventually impressed, and he got hired by Microsoft. So this was one example of how someone got hired because of the open source skills and development by a company. So this can be the case with you. So if you're constantly working on projects, employers will reach out to you instead of you reaching out to recruiters. They'll reach out to you, and this is better than the traditional approach of you applying on job portals for various opportunities. And there's always a competitive advantage for your business. So the thing is, as I mentioned, proprietary software companies are always in the risk of running out of or closing down, and this would stop the support for your projects if you're using some proprietary software. Whereas open source is always available and developers will keep working on it. So the loss of support is less. So the reliability is higher and the longevity is also more. So that's why you have a competitive advantage in your business if you're using open source projects. Yeah, thank you. So there are some guidelines to becoming a valuable open source community member. So you might have seen a lot of communities have some guidelines. So similar with open source communities, there are some common guidelines which can be followed by anyone who looks to start with open source contribution or has already been contributing. So first and foremost, you should understand the community's personality. So you can go ahead, you can see the other developers, you can talk to them, you can understand the documentation which they have put up out there. You have these README documents, and you can read what is the aim of the project, what things have been worked on, and what are they working on, and what they're looking to solve. And also there's a particular format for comments or to contribute new features to that project. So if you're aware of this makes you more familiar and a more valuable member of the community, and you're able to contribute better and faster. The process of your feature being accepted by the owner of the project is also more likely. Next, you should always treat others right. So this is a given for any community. You should refrain yourself from using any derogatory statements or words towards any community member. There are some people who might know more than you. There are some people who might know less than you. But that is, people are always learning. So if you find someone who knows less, and you shouldn't degrade him or demotivate him. You should always motivate him or try to solve the problem if you can. And if you cannot, redirect him to the person who can. So this is something you can follow. And next we have build small and build trust. So what this basically means is, instead of going behind making major changes, you can always small start. It can be a small change. It can be a small fix. It can be a small fix to a bug which has been noticed by one of the users of the project. You can just solve by fixing that bug, and you're contributing to the project. So it doesn't have to be a very major change or major feature you're introducing to the project. It could be very small. And by doing the small changes, you build trust with other developers that you're always working and you're trying to make changes and contributing to the project. So this is very important. So you don't need to go behind something big. You can just start with small steps. So you can build, try to make some small changes or small contributions, and that also helps a lot and helps you gain trust of other developers. Next, try to write clean, manageable, and tested code. So make sure your code is easily readable by others. So there are a lot of developers working on these open source projects. So if you write clean code, and it's a easily manageable and tested code, it makes it others to utilize your code, and it can also make it easier for them to contribute to that project. So make sure your code is clean, manageable, and it also been tested, that it doesn't break easily, or it has some issues with it. If you're not sure about it, make sure you discuss it with the other members, and then make sure it's reliable, and then contribute to the project, so that your project doesn't cause issues to the users. Next, always have a maintenance plan for any new feature you're trying to introduce. So a lot of times you might have noticed, or you might have experienced, some bugs in your projects, open source projects, which I've been using. So, and then you go and report this, and then there's a solution that comes up very late or something. So make sure when you're introducing something new, you have done and tested various environments. So you can see what are the issues faced by various environments or various people on their systems, and what was the solution to it. So once you have a maintenance plan, you can always put that in the documentation, and users can always go ahead and read that documentation and find a fix to that problem. So this makes your project high level, and more users will look to use your project, or contribute to your project, because it's an organized way of putting out things there. And next is like you try to get a mentor. So this always helps, mentors who are experienced in open source projects, or who are being contributing to these projects regularly, or it can be someone who is working with the same project you're looking to work with. So it can be anyone you find relevant, and whom you agree with. You can get along with that guy and that person, and you can talk to him, you can discuss stuff with him or her, and you can always get feedback on your contributions. So that will help you grow your skill set and learn more. Next is connect with the community. So a lot of these open source communities, they're available on Slack, Discord, or WhatsApp groups. So you can always join them over there, and you can put up your doubts or queries over there, or you can always update them on what new feature or contribution you have done. So you can go ahead and message them, and you can connect with them. And this helps you also learn more from other people, connect with other people from all over the region, all over the globe. So you can just go ahead and try to connect with the community and learn more. Next is know the licenses. So there are a lot of even within open source also, we have some rules and licenses on how to introduce and how a project can be used. So make sure you have read the documentation very carefully, and you're aware of all the rules and all the conditions that are being put or laid forward. So you're familiar with that, and you try not to break them or make a mistake. So you can always go ahead and read that licenses and get familiarized. Next is share your knowledge. So if there's something which you have found a fix to, or you have made a new feature and it can help a lot of people, make sure you contribute and put it out there, because that way you learn from other people and what they require. It will also help your feature contribution grow more. So in case you introduce a feature and it has some more potential, and which was seen by some other developer, you can always add into that, and you can increase the scope of the project. So this helps you build really good projects, and also learn from other people, and that is by sharing your knowledge. Yeah, Fawaz, can you go to the next slide? So you are wondering where to focus on now. So there's not just one field which has open source. There are a lot of fields which have open source. So if you're focused on multi-architecture development, you can focus on thin terminal developer experience. You can go for data privacy and security. You can go for AI fairness, DevOps, edge computing, serverless, deep learning, hybrid cloud, data intensive computation, cross-platform application, chatbots, deep learning, machine learning algorithms, a lot of other fields. You can always go and mention all these fields. It's open to everyone. So like let's say I'm familiar with data science, and I look to venture into DevOps. I can go ahead and always learn from these projects. You can go ahead and contribute to these projects by learning also. So there's no restriction of you being confined to one domain. You can always venture into other domains. You can learn more. You can also grow your knowledge and your experience by working with other fields. And this helps you also not only contribute, but also grow your skill set and your knowledge. Yeah, Fawaz, can you go to the next slide? Yeah, thank you. So next we have our guest speaker, Chaitanya Mittal, who's going to share his experience working on open source projects, and he's going to share some tips and tricks which will be very helpful to you all. Over to you, Chaitanya.
Thank you, Mridul, and hello everyone. I'm really excited to be here, and today I will try to answer all the questions a developer might have as they begin their open source journey. These questions include the why, like why would you want to contribute? Where do I start contributing? How to start contributing? Common pitfalls to avoid, and how to do all these things efficiently. So to begin with, why should I contribute to open source? Now, contributing to open source is the easiest way to learn new skills as a developer, no matter what your current interest or level is. This is because there are open source projects across technologies that require developers at various levels. In addition to this, open source projects provide students with real world exposure which gives them a competitive edge while they're still in university. Apart from learning, open source presents opportunities to developers for networking, seeking mentors, looking for collaborators, and even conducting research. As an example, thanks to my work with Wikimedia, I've been able to find mentors and collaborators with whom I'm currently pursuing a research project in machine learning. Last but not the least, there is a significant feel good factor about contributing to something that's larger than just yourself. And these are the reasons why you should contribute to open source. Next up, we have where do I start contributing? Because the natural question is where and how do I even start? So, what are the shared spaces where open source lives? Now, GitHub, as Fawaz mentioned, is the largest public code sharing website in the world. It has over 28 million public repositories. And I think GitHub is the ideal place for someone who's beginning their open source journey to start looking for projects they want to contribute to. Now, next up, we have hackathons, like the IBM Call for Code. Hackathons are a unique experience that every developer should strive to have under their belt, simply because they offer developers a chance to try and solve a defined set of problems under time constraints. And they help you learn the skills of collaborating with other people, working under pressure, learning new skills given a time constraint, and all of these skills combined make the difference between a good developer and a great developer. Next up, we have events like Hacktoberfest, Google Summer of Code, Outreachy, just to name a few. Now, I've been lucky enough to be involved with all three of these events. I would like to speak about these events in a little more detail. Hacktoberfest, for example, is an annual event that happens every October where open source organizations actively seek out new contributors. They do so around the year as well, but in the month of October, they do so even more with a focus on new developers to bring more contributions in and to, cultivate new volunteers. Google Summer of Code. It's one of the most prestigious internship programs in the world. Highly competitive, but highly enriching as well. It allows you the opportunity to work for an open source project while earning a stipend, so that you can support the work that you're doing for the open source project. It lasts all summer long. It's about three months, and it's really enriching. Next up, we have Outreachy. Outreachy is very similar to Google Summer of Code, except that it goes one step further and promotes people from underrepresented sections in tech, and that I think is really noble, and combined with the cause of working for open source is amazing. So where do you find the people who are working on these projects? You can check out IRC. IRC stands for Internet Relay Chat. It is an old technology, but a lot of people have been working in open source for decades, not even years. And hence, you find a lot of seasoned contributors in IRC. The next place where you can find people would be mailing lists. You just need to subscribe, and all you need is an email account, and that I think is a great place to start. You can always check out Zulip, Slack, and Discord, because each community have their own preferences as to where they communicate, but it's usually one or the other. And the 5 things that I mentioned here are usually where most communities communicate. Now, the best part is every single one of these places that I mentioned are open forums where anyone can participate. And that's what makes open source a really great place to start learning and start improving as a software engineer. Next up is how do I even start contributing? Like, what is the best process? And I will try to relate this to my experience starting out. So the first thing you want to do is to find an interesting project. For me, that was the Wikimedia Foundation. The Wikimedia Foundation is the foundation that runs projects like Wikipedia in multiple languages, Wikidata, Wikivoyage, and many, many other projects. Now, the reason I chose Wikimedia was the open source organization I wanted to work with was because I fell in love with their vision. Their vision is a world where anyone can share freely in the sum of all knowledge. And I think that's amazing, right? So the reason I tell you to find an interesting project first is because taking time out of your schedule to contribute to something for the greater good requires effort, and that effort only comes in when you truly believe in that concept. So it's really important to find a project that you believe in and a project whose mission you can relate to. The next thing you want to do is you want to make first contact. Now, the term first contact is highly common in the open source world, and what it basically means, just to break it down, is that you come in, you introduce yourself, you state your interests, you state your skills, and then you politely ask for help as to where would be a good place for you to start. Now, the reason all of these components are important is because it gives the reader all the information they need to help you out, and also is a great way to make lasting connections over the course of professional careers as to where your skills are and what your interests are and why you would actually like to contribute to the open source organization. So that is making first contact. Next up is once you've asked for help as to where to start, people in the organization will actually help you find a good first issue to resolve. Now, this is more about learning how to contribute than contributing. Your first issue always teaches you more than helps out the organization. Now, this is important because when an organization trusts you with the task of solving an issue, it is investing time and resources into you. And that's how developers are cultivated. That's how open source volunteers are cultivated. And when you find a good first issue to resolve, you seek help at every step of the way as to you understand what are the norms of this open source community, what are the best coding practices, and how do I write this particular piece of software? How do I convert this idea into code that will be merged into production? And these are all the things that you learn with your first issue, and this is really important. Just to give you a small anecdote of sorts, when I first started contributing to Wikimedia, I wanted to contribute to machine learning, and there were no machine learning tasks that were open. So I contributed to a web development task, that a web page of the machine learning team. And that's how I really even made first contact with the machine learning team, so to speak. So it's not important what your first task is. It's just important that you understand how you want to contribute, what is the right way of contributing to an organization, and then you look for tasks that are more suited to your interests and that are more suited to what you want to help the organization with. So the next step after finding a good first issue would be to resolve that issue, obviously, with, of course, taking help along the way and researching on your own, figuring out things, and merge your PR. So open source is all about collaboration and peer review, as Fawaz mentioned. So when you merge your PR, when you file a pull request, a PR is a pull request, by the way. When you file your pull request, it's reviewed by senior members in the community who check and who comment if everything is okay or not. And once everything is okay, it meets the standards of the organization, then your pull request is merged and you have successfully contributed to an open source project. And you should take a moment to appreciate what a great feeling that is, because the feeling of your first pull request being merged into production is a great feeling. And I hope all of you will be able to get that in the near future. And the last step is to rinse and repeat. So you just want to do this again and again until you're comfortable with contributing to an open source organization. Next up, can we have the next slide, please? Yeah, the next up would be the common pitfalls to avoid. Now, these are some of the mistakes I've made, and I think it's great if you can avoid these mistakes. So I'll just go over this quickly. Not following the code of conduct. You really want to read the code of conduct before you make first contact. It's about collaboration, it's about community, and if you're not respectful of others, then it's really hard to work with other people. So reading the code of conduct is the first thing you want to do. Next up, you want to research before seeking help. People are short on time, and it makes it very hard for people to actually help out organizations and help out people, help out new developers if they keep answering the same questions over and over again. So do your research, figure out if the answer to your question is available, on documentation, on blog posts, or going through the log of the IRC or the Slack, going up in the history, seeing if someone has already asked that. And only once you're satisfied with your search, then ask the question and also state that here is where I looked and I couldn't find anything. Can you please help me? Next up, you want to seek help. Now, I understand that these two things are a little contradictory, but it's important to find a balance between spending time on solving an issue and seeking help wherever required, because you might be stuck on a problem that you couldn't possibly solve in a reasonable amount of time, and it would be totally okay to actually ask for help and get that issue resolved and move on. It's always important to find a balance, so to speak. Next thing you don't want to do is to be narrow-minded or arrogant. You don't want to do that. This is just chiming off the following the code of conduct. Nobody has all the answers, and there's no point in being arrogant when you don't have all the answers. Next mistake you want to avoid is biting off more than you can chew. Now, this is something I did in my early days at Wikimedia. I took up, I think, 4 or 5 tasks at once, and I was really, really keen on impressing the machine learning team because there were a lot of people who were trying to contribute to the team, trying to get in. And this was, I think, March of last year. And it was a really, it got so overwhelming for me. I had to drop a few of those tasks. And I got this advice from my mentor then. He told me, don't try to do everything at once. Take it slow, especially when you're starting out. So don't bite off more than you can chew. And the next mistake you want to avoid is irregular and sporadic communication. Since open source is decentralized, it's really important for you to share what you're doing with the greater community so that there's a public log of what you're doing and so that people can help you out if you're making an unconscious mistake. For example, I say that, okay, I'm going to take this piece of code and I'm going to rewrite the whole thing. And someone else just comes in, you don't need to rewrite the whole thing. Here's a link. You can just use this code. And that saves me a ton of time, right? So you should always be communicative and open because you never know who might be able to help you out with something. Next up, we have what are the ways that you can do all these things efficiently. Now, these are some tips and tricks, and this is probably the most important part of my presentation. So the tips and tricks to actually do all of this efficiently would be to find a balance between familiarity and challenges. What I mean by this is try to do something that your skill set will allow you to, but also ensure that you're learning something new while you're doing that task. If you do everything that you already know, you're not learning anything. And if you do everything that you don't know anything about, then you're taking too much time and you're probably not helping as much as you possibly could. So it's important to find that balance. Next up, you want to communicate with as many people as possible. Open source is made up of people. That's literally it. Open source is just a movement of people from all across the world who are working towards a shared goal. And it's really important to connect with these people at a level where you can appreciate why the other person is doing what they're doing and understand what are the challenges they face and what drives them. It's not just about learning new things, it's also about forming connections that can help you out later on in your career. Next up, you want to keep your decision-making process open and welcome feedback. As I mentioned previously, you want to communicate as much as possible so that people are willing to help you and you make it easier for them to help you. Because if you make it difficult for someone to help you out, then people are not going to help you out. It's pretty straightforward. So you want to keep your decision making process open so that people can understand why you did something and help you out if you're doing something wrong. Next up, you want to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. When I started working with the machine learning team at Wikimedia, I had never built a neural network. I had never built a machine learning model per se. It was just, I was pretty blank, so to speak. But today, I'm really happy to say that I've done a lot of these things over the past year because I was able to ask for help when I needed it, and because I was willing to step out of my comfort zone. So that's important. Next up, you want to be consistent, and this is very so let me try and tell you something. When you're consistent with something, people are willing to trust you and give you more responsibilities. Open source relies on trust and shared responsibility, and it's important that the other members in the community can trust you with the task and can involve you in the decision making process. When I started, I was obviously a newcomer, a volunteer contributor, so I was not involved in major decision making processes. Today, I'm happy to say that I'll be mentoring a Google Summer of Code intern this year with the machine learning team. And I was instrumental in actually deciding on what the project would be for that intern. And it's all about being consistent and earning that trust over a period of time. So that's something that you might want to do. Lastly, stay true to yourself and just have fun, because it's important to learn. It's important to work. But if you enjoy the work you're doing, then it truly there's no better way to do it. So that's it from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chaitanya, for such an informative session and for sharing your knowledge with all of us. It was really helpful for our attendees. And yeah, there are many places to start. Okay, and today we are going to make your and today you are going to make your first commit. So first things first, if you don't have a GitHub account, create a GitHub account. Okay, and to the repository which we'll be making a commit, you can go to ipm.biz/my contribution. MNC is capital, and let us know when you're there. And Mridul, over to you. Mridul and I will be showing you two views and how it looks to create a PR, and how it looks on my end that I'm accepting his pull request. So Mridul, on to you now.
Yeah, thank you, Fawaz. I'll just share my screen. Just give me a minute. Yeah, you can see my screen, right?
Yep.
I hope it's clear.
Yeah, it's very clear. You can just zoom in a bit.
Okay, sure. Better?
A bit more.
Okay.
It's a bit distorted for me. Okay, much better now.
Yeah. So as you can see, we have Fawaz's repository open. You can go to the link which he has shared. You can go ahead and you can copy that link and go to that link. And now, firstly, what we do is we'll fork the repository. So I'm going to click on this fork over here. You see this, it's written fork, and you just need to click on this. And I'm going to select, I want to fork it to my account. And I have created a copy of, it'll create a copy of the repository for you. And it will take a few seconds. And yes, so I have, copied the repository which he has shared, and we have the entire thing over here. So what we're going to do is we are going to edit one of the files, and we're going to put a pull request. So usually we do it using an IDE, or any IDE like Visual Studio Code or JetBrains or Atom or anything. But just for the sake of this demo, I'll just edit it in the browser itself, because it's a very small contribution I'll be making. So I'm going to click on the playground.empty file. and we can edit anything we want. We want to type down over here. So you can click on this edit this file icon over here. It's a pen icon. You can click on that, and yes, so we're able to edit this file. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write one line. Yes. So I have this line, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it to a different branch. So if I click on, when I scroll down and I say create a new branch for this commit and start a pull request, so I'm going to click on this and I'm going to propose the changes. Now I will not merge it to the main file. I'll just head over to Fawaz's repository. So if you want to head over to the main repository which you are forked from, you can always go here and it's written over here, forked from Fawaz Siddiqui / your first contribution. So I'm going to click on this, and okay, wait, I'll just create a pull request to my first main branch, and I can just merge this. So I'll just try to go and try to create a pull request and new pull request. So let's Fawaz's repository. Okay, we don't have it here. So I'll just merge this. How much? And sorry, on this. So where's first I cannot see that repo.
Sorry, it's online. I just cross-checked right now. You forked it. Okay, you're going to go to the pull request section. Yeah, and you will click on create pull request. Not
Yes,
on my repository, on your repository.
yeah, I did.
And basically, from here, you're going to click on your branch and create the pull, and you can create a new pull request.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So I have the patch one, and I'm going to create the pull request now. So you can give any name you want, whatever you're doing, you can change over here. You can give it that, and I just create a pull request. Yes, first, should I stop sharing?
So Mridul has created a pull request now on my GitHub. Okay, now let's check out what's going on my end. So I'm going to share my screen, and let me share application window and Safari and share. So I hope you all can see my screen. All right, perfect. So basically, Mridul has created a pull request, and I can see that here now. He's like, hey, I have changed this file. I feel like this could be a good addition. Okay, and I can actually see what he's added. He's added his quote right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like, hey, Mridul, good contribution. Merging it now. Okay, and I can comment it, and I can click on merge pull request. So this is the project owner side, basically. Since I'm the project owner right now, I'm able to merge it to my master branch. And as you can see, now the playground.md file will be having this sentence. So I would really suggest all of you to start here. to basically, and we've also added um, all the steps which Mridul followed basically to create the pull request, and an advanced way and an easier way as well. So you have both of them, and it's very, as you see, it's very simple to actually create a pull request. So now, where do you start? Yeah, my suggestion right now is to look for hackathons and what's going on in the current market, current space, and basically that would be. Let me just share my screen. I hope you can see. Yes, that would be Call for Code. So why join Call for Code? Call for Code is an yearly challenge by IBM, and we usually have themes per every year. And this year we have the theme, and basically it's all about using tech for good, to change the community and to actually make an impact. And this year our theme is about zero hunger, clean water and green consumption of resources, clean water and sanitization, and fighting hunger in various countries. So with you can start a project as well, and you can actually even go ahead and create your own solutions with a team. And if you win, you get a grand prize of 200,000, and you also get support from IBM on taking the project even further ahead in the market space and to build up more on it into a production level project. To get started, you can actually click the green button right under the screen, where you see workshop resources, and basically you'll be taken to the registration page. You can directly register, you can join, you can explore our starter kits, and try out new projects, and then you can go ahead and build your own team, and you can start contributing, and you can basically create a solution for good using tech. So some of the useful resources which we have here is, and the slides are also hosted on the GitHub repository. So basically you can just access from there in case you missed this out, but you can refer to ibm.com/open source, redhat.com about our community contributions. Red Hat is a very, very major open source contributor, open source community right now, especially with the boom of Red Hat OpenShift and hybrid cloud phases, which are currently happening in the market. You can also check out linuxfoundation.org, excuse my tongue, and also opensource.org to learn more. And last but not the least, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Fawaz Siddiqui. With me, I had Mridul Bandari and Chaitanya Mittal. And there are our contact links in case you'd like to contact us. If you have any questions, if you have anything at all, you can always email us or just ping us on LinkedIn, and we'll be more than happy to actually answer your questions and even connect and have a casual discussion. More than happy for that. And last but not least, it would be really helpful if you can actually share your feedback with us on how we did on this webinar. What would you like to see next? What could have been improved? And it would be really nice to hear from you. And even if you're interested in speaking at one of our webinars, just like how Chaitanya did, you can apply at the survey link, and we'll be more than happy to assist. And I actually take an action towards your feedback on our end. Thank you so much, and have a lovely day, and stay safe, and keep your family safe as well.